Welcome. Scott here. I will be covering on the upcoming story event, Act 3 Chapter 7 Part 2, The Planet and the Hero. The featured units for the event are Cissnei from Final Fantasy VII, Snow from Final Fantasy XIII and Lion from Final Fantasy XI. Zedon is originally the last Synergy member for the event when it is released in JP. As he is released earlier, my guess on the replacement is most probably Ishtala. Cissnei will be making her debut. She was one of the best damage support unit thanks to her awesome follow-up gimmick. Cissnei and Ishtala are getting C90 awakenings. We will be fighting Safer Sephiroth, who has a massive HP pool, 44 million HP. The boss is immune to launches, delays, and turn deletion. He is immune to the max HP down debuff. This is one of the tougher fights before we approach the new era. The turn requirement for the fight is 40 and the HP requirements is 20,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA plus Orb Conditions. The orb will be activated at the 79% HP threshold at the counter of 10. Every action taken by your party members will downtick the orb by 2. The countdown ability is fatal. To freeze the orb, you need to fulfill both of the following conditions. 1. Deal critical damage to the boss and 2. Player deals brave damage with an additional attack triggered from an action against enemy. If you have Cissnei, she is the premium unit for the fight as she fulfill the condition easily as long as you don't let her LD buff drop off. For party-wide critical buffers you can consider brining Lily Set, Barret, Sis, Kais, or Kate Sith. I won't recommend to bring Kais unless you are really that desperate that you don't have any viable critical rate buffers. Barret, Sis, and Kate Sith are all premium guaranteed critical hit rate calls. For follow-up attack support, you can consider bringing Freya, Cloud of Darkness, Noctis, or Kain. Freya is probably the second best option after Cissnei. Other than healing from her spear attacks, she also offers party-wide last stand. Just give her a Kate Sith, Sis, or Barret LDCA and have her firing the spears in the background. Do note that counters or enemy turn follow-up won't uptick the orb. It needs to be triggered from your action. To uptick the orb, you need to fulfill the conditions while in summon or the burst phase. Do also note that units like Titus, Seymour, or Kaduch won't uptick the orb with their own follow-up. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly gain good amount of brave, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. The boss has a very big HP pool. Using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Lily Set, Fran, Maria, Dark Knight Cecil, Gabrinth, and Ignis are useful. As the boss cleanses debuffs often, Aura-type HP damage calls like Leo, Alisai, Kamari, or Locke are very good alternatives for this fight. The boss is able to warp and do 3 consecutive turns. Thus disable their turns are very useful here. If the call can negate the damage, it will be even better. Ragin LDCA is a good option to use for the Heartless Angel threshold. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Garnet, Eiko, Ramza, Leela, Purim, Setzer, Agrias, Katsa, Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Rem, Lyud, and Siren. Garnet, Siren, or Ramza BT Plus support will help with their powerful auras so that you could finish the fight a lot faster. If you don't want to play to the orb, you can bring Eiko for the fight. As the boss don't have any guaranteed hit HP attacks. Leela will make this a very safe run where you can focus on bring a damage unit and follow up support. The fight features some mechanics that will result to boss take some turn. Unless you are doing full evasion strategy involving Leela, damage mitigation will make the fight easier to ensure your party are safe from any stray HP attacks. Options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Beatrix, Orin, Zac, Guy, Bash, and Prompto. Core and Snow can uptick the orb with their preemptive attack and link strike triggers. Prompto can also uptick the orb with his linked attack. However, the support will be gone once his stacks are fully depleted. Now let's focus on the key units that you bring in for the fight. For follow-up attack support, you can consider bringing Cissnei, Kain, Core, Yang, Freya, Cloud of Darkness, Noctis, or Vayne. For critical buffers, other than Cissnei, you can bring Lily Set, Sizz, Barret, Kais, Arania, or Kate Sit. I won't recommend to bring Kais or Arania unless you don't have reliable critical hit options, due to the boss immunity to launches and breaks once its HP dropped to 79%. Arania's Vita Crusher debuff will enable the party to hit for guaranteed critical hit. But you need to time so you maximize the use of the debuff. Kais has break immunity on his hero support, so he could be a good defensive utility support for that. However, he will be pretty much a dead weight for the party as the boss is immune to launches. Other than the above mentioned units, you can consider bringing the following units. Laguna and Kaduch offer gold frame debuffs which cannot be cleansed. Seymour can reapply his potent HP damage up debuff and deals out potent damage when the boss HP is getting low. Cloud, Tifa, Titus, Terra, and Machina offers huge amount of damage in a frenzy. Terra and Titus are really good for this fight as they are the best units to abuse the follow-up attacks. Rude has guaranteed critical rate for himself and offers great party-wide healing. The boss has a 50% chance of inflicting paralysis or blind on its brave attack. So having debuff evasion unit like Lena is a good option here. As none of the boss attacks are guaranteed hit, if you don't have Leela, you can consider bringing Rydia for her party-wide evasion utility. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The boss gains LUFENIA aura at the following thresholds: start of the fight and the 79% HP threshold. At the 79% HP threshold, the boss will also gain a permanent aura that prevents its brave from dropping below 999. Avoid bringing units that relies on break mechanic. The LUFENIA countdown ability is fatal and a tight one. Generally, it will downtick in 5 actions if none of your actions fulfill the uptick requirements. You need to either bring Cissnei or bring units that can follow up the 2 uptick conditions, follow-up attack and guaranteed critical hit. At the 79%, 49%, and 29% HP threshold, Safer Sephiroth will warp its turn and gain 2 instant turns. Safer Sephiroth has a standard damage cycle which I will cover in the later part of the slides. Amongst the attacks, it will frequently cleanse debuffs after triggering Dean. At the 19% HP threshold, Safer Sephiroth will unleash Heartless Angel Plus. Make sure you have some form of damage mitigation as the attack will scales off Sephiroth's current HP as its damage output. It is a non-guaranteed hit attack, so you can also evade it with Leela or get guaranteed evasion with Rydia LDCA. Other than the restrictive orb and massive HP pool, the turn requirement is also quite a strict one. This is one of the harder fights that we have in the while. If you don't have a follow-up attack support available or critical rate buffer, you can get it fulfilled with a Cissnei friend, while you can just bring a turn spammer along with a damage mitigator for the HP thresholds. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, brave damage, and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 79% thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost all its defenses by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense to 300%. The maximum brave damage reduction auras is 70%. The maximum brave gain reduction auras are 70%. At the 79% HP thresholds, Safer Sephiroth will gain an aura that prevents it brave from dropping to below 999. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain and brave damage reduction auras, you can use brave damage up debuffs like Jack, Sephiroth, or deploy a support with brave damage up like Lena. Rem is an example of a few supports that provide brave gain up. Now let's look into the key boss mechanics. Safer Sephiroth will warp its turn at the 79%, 49%, and 29% HP thresholds. It will follow up with 2 instant turns. Upon the first activation, Sephiroth will gain a break immunity that its brave will never fall below 999. At the 19% HP threshold, Safer Sephiroth will unleash Heartless Angel Plus. This attack will guarantee break on the party and deals an AoE HP damage is equivalent to 99% of Safer Sephiroth's current HP. It will also inflict a 10% max HP down debuff for 3 turns on the entire party. Make sure you have some form of damage mitigation ready before you thread the aforementioned threshold, or you might get KO from the attack. Try to bring the boss HP as low as possible before you trigger the threshold. The lower the HP that Safer Sephiroth has, the less dangerous the attack will be. You can evade the entire attack with Redia LDCA or negate the damage entirely with Ragin LDCA or Reno LDCA. Now let's focus on the Safer Sephiroth damage cycle. It will start off with Shadow Flare, which is a single target brave attack. On its next turn, it will do a brave attack which has a 50% chance of inflict blind or paralysis debuff for 1 turn on its target. If you are unlucky, it is possible that both debuff might trigger. On the next turn, it will use Dean, an AoE brave attack that will dispel all non-framed buffs. Follow this immediately, it will activate Light Shines in where it cleanses all debuffs except gold framed debuffs. Safer Sephiroth will be glowing with a yellow aura. On the following turn, it will use Pale Horse, an AoE brave plus HP attack. On the next turn, it will use Heartless Angel, which is a brave gain, AoE brave plus HP attack. After Heartless Angel is used, Sephiroth will loses the yellow aura and it will reset the cycle back to Shadow Flare again. It is important to avoid timing the trigger of 29% and 19% HP threshold triggers back to back. Otherwise, you will be facing with back-to-back Heartless Angel, which will most likely wipe out your party. I have come to the last slide of the guide. To summarize, the fight features a restrictive orb. It is either you bring Cissnei or have units that fulfill the 2 conditions together. Here are some tips from me regards to the fight. As you want to abuse the follow-up, maximize the effect by bringing turn hoggers like Titus, Lightning, or Terra, or units with loads of instant turns like Tifa and Alisai. The boss is immune to delay, but you can force delay it with Quistis. Ensure you have damage mitigation or party evasion covered, as the boss will warp its turn once its HP drops to 79%, 49%, and 29% HP threshold. Try to bring the boss HP to as low as possible before trigger the 19% HP threshold. The lower the current HP that Safer Sephiroth has, the less deadly the attack will be. To ensure your run is safely cleared, use a damage mitigation call like Ragin LDCA or Reno LDCA to mitigate the damage. You can uptick the orb while in the summon or burst phase, provided if you fulfill the orb uptick the conditions. Time the use of them well so you can extend the orb when you need it to. With this, we have come to the end of the boss guide. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please do give the video a like. Please do subscribe to my channel for future similar content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.